Welcome back to Timo's Dinky and Diecast. Today I'm going to be doing a Dinky toy. It's a 25Y Universal Jeep and I'm going to convert it for the Rat Patrol. This is a TV show in the 60s that was taking place, supposed to be in the Second World War in North Africa. You might recognize the picture of that guy I just showed you. Here's the toy. It's not the first Jeep I've done. This one is in pretty good shape. The windshield is a little bit, it looks like it was bent down and somebody straightened it out, and it's on the verge of breaking. And when I first got it, I thought that was the shape of it. It was supposed to be like that. So anyway, the toy looks pretty much complete. It's got all its tires, wheels, it's got a hook on the end, steering wheel, and there's not much more to it. Then there's that small base, and part of the base, it doesn't exist. It's just castings saying it's Dinky by Meccano. This is my clamp. This toy happens to have this little circle on the bottom, and somebody told me that it's used or was used in the factory for painting. They would put this onto a spinning shaft, and a whole bunch of them would spin by the spray paint machine, and it would spray paint the thing nice even coat of paint. So I've adapted that little clamp. There's another episode that I might link to if I actually posted it as yet, but I'll have a video for you showing you how to make that clamp. Taking the tires off. This one won't come unless I take the spare tire. Spare tire is a different tire altogether from the other ones. These ones have tread on them. These are actually not for the military toy. I know somebody's bound to tell me. Now this is my file. I'm taking off these axles. I'm just filing off the end that was mushroomed in the factory, and I've ground off the edge of the file so it won't be cutting into the wheel as I'm filing it off. And I've saved this one because I want the full length for when I'm making new axles, which you'll see later on. This one I can't get the file in there so conveniently, so I'm just cutting it off. I haven't been using the old axles for quite some time, although you may have seen some videos from my older videos where I have been using them, because at the beginning I was doing all those things. I was hammering at them and creating the mushroom the hard way. So I'll show you later how I put those wheels back on. Now this one has a single rivet holding this base on, and I'm using the Dremel tool with the tiny little carbide burr, and I'm cutting the head off of that rivet very carefully, and I take my time. That thing can easily get away from you, and it can maybe damage the rest of the casting, so I'm being careful about it. So even with the rivet ground mostly away, you can see this one, there's no place to get in there. So I have to make sure I take off all of the rivet, because normally you'd be able to pry against it and it'll pull up the little ragged edge that's holding it in. But with this one, you really there's no place to get a tool in there to pry it out. So you have to take off all of the material from the rivet that's on the outside, above the surface of that sheet metal base. Now I'm using, instead of the screwdriver, no, that's still the screwdriver. Never mind. So I was able to get it off now. Sometimes I would use my scriber to get into those tiny spaces, but I obviously didn't need to on this one. Now the steering wheel the shaft is just pushed in, and then in the factory it's bent so that it doesn't come out. So I need to straighten that out. It's a little bit tricky getting in there. I was thinking, okay, what if I take the windshield out? But if you look at the way the windshield, it's made of steel, fairly heavy gauge, and it's bent and then screwed in place. To take that out of there, I would have to straighten that. It's impossible, basically, without damaging it beyond repair. So I'm going to have to leave the windshield in, and I have to straighten that shaft somehow. So I'm just getting leverage with the screwdriver until it's reasonably straight, and then it comes out. So the windshield's going to have to stay in there. It's not going to come out without permanent damage. So that's everything taken apart. You can't take apart the steering wheel because there's crimps in there that gives you perfect spacing for when it goes back together, which is convenient, but you would have to grind that off. You're not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it, the steering wheel on the steering wheel shaft. So now it goes into this bucket, inside a bigger bucket because of overflow, and I put boiling water. This is outside because this stuff makes a bunch of steam that smells. And I put in some caustic soda. I don't think that was enough. There we go. And you can see the green paint has come off of it. That was, by the way, all repainted, that color of green, although the original green was pretty similar. So there, all of the paint has come off, and the casting looks in very, very good condition. So that's, I'm fortunate for that. There's no repairs really to be made on that. The base looks okay. And I had the wheels in there, the hubs, and they are also stripped nicely. And the steering wheel. So far so good. There's nothing damaged, nothing really needs to be repaired. The steering wheel is a little bit bent, but I'm not going to try and straighten it because I'm likely to break it. It's very fragile because it's cast from the same material, and this material gets weaker if it gets bent, and then you try to straighten it, it's gonna break. So rather than break the steering wheel, it'll go on a little crooked, and if I didn't tell you about it, you probably wouldn't even notice it. So there I'm taking the wheel, the wire wheel to everything, and here that was the steering wheel, and gently buffed that up. Now the hole I'm drilling here, this is right in the middle of the bed. This, in order to be a Rat Patrol Jeep, it's going to require a modification, a major modification, and a 3D printed, some parts will be 3D printed. Here I'm drilling first with the center drill, and now with the tap drill. I'm drilling for the rivet that's gonna be a screw where I replace the rivet. And here I'm using a spiral fluted tap to tap in a 440 hole, so I can thread in a 440 hex socket button head cap screw. That's what I'm using now. It's not a rivet. Some people will try and make it look very authentic by putting in a fake rivet, but I like to put these screws in. Later on I can take it apart again if I want to, and I would rather do that. Now this is a 3D printed part, and I'm going to put a thread in it. This is the base for holding the machine gun. That's what makes this Jeep more unique from other Jeeps. In the TV show, this was a Jeep in North Africa during the Second World War, fighting the Afrika Korps, and the Jeep had a heavy machine gun attached to it. It's a 50 caliber. This is a 3D print I made. I got this from the internet, and I'll put a link below. But this is a 50 caliber Browning machine gun, and this is interesting in itself. This machine gun was made for the First World War, but the war ended before they were able to put it into production. So the production was canceled, but they still made a bunch for the Coast Guard. So the Coast Guard put it into service, and then come the Second World War, there became a need again for these large caliber machine guns, and they wound up putting into a lot of production, and they mounted them on all vehicles, half-tracks, tanks, Jeeps. I'm pretty sure they even mounted them on motorcycles. But it was everywhere, and so they really were on Jeeps in North Africa, although I have to say that the TV show depicted Jeeps that were that were green rather than the desert sand color, but I'm doing it according to the TV show. So this is the machine gun. This machine gun is the most successful weapon, perhaps a small arm in history, because from the end of the Second World War to present day, they're still in production, and they're still being used by the Coast Guard. So here the windshield, I'm getting that bend out of it, and I'm doing it by squeezing it in the vise. And I can get a fair bit of straightening this way, but not completely to my satisfaction. There's still like a zigzag in there, and I want to get that out of it. So what to do? So I get out the old hammer, and if I didn't tell you before, this hammer is the one that I built I was sent for retraining. When I got out of school, there were no jobs, so they sent me to a retraining program where they trained me to be a machinist. And one of the projects was to make a hammer, and that's a hammer I made. So there, I've gotten that windshield as straight as I could, and now it gets a coat of primer. And this is just gray automotive primer from the Canadian Tire hardware store. Same thing goes on to the wheels and onto my Browning 50 caliber machine gun, and the mount for it, and the steering wheel, and the base gets black. It gets the semi-gloss black, or the satin, and so does the steering wheel and the mounting for the machine gun and the machine gun itself. Now for the body, I've been meaning to do this for a while. I did run a test before trying to use this paint. So this is craft paint from the dollar store. It costs about $1.25 for a bottle, so it's very inexpensive, and so I've got all kinds of colors, so it's easy for me to come up with the correct color. And it's acrylic paint, so I'm using this acrylic thinner. It turns out that's a bad idea. First of all, it doesn't mix very well, and second of all, it causes the model, the acrylic thinner doesn't dry very fast at all. I'm spray painting this thing, and it's speeded up, but what you don't notice is that it doesn't dry. So it took hours for the thing to dry, and it's all uneven. So I went back, I got some evaporated paint that's left over, and I decided to thin it for the airbrush, not with the acrylic thinner, but with straight alcohol. So now it doesn't want to mix very well, so I'm going to this drink mixer, which I've taken a little spring off so it's not so aggressive, and I'm trying to mix this stuff up. So my theory is that the alcohol will dry more quickly and the paint will dry fast enough that it will be an even coat. So here we go back into the spray booth, and I respray the whole model again. And there it is. Now it has an even coat. I didn't really get a shot of it when it was all disappointingly blotchy. That sometimes happens to me. I don't want you to see my failures, but probably should have shown you how it looked. So anyway, after doing with the alcohol, it dried faster. I was able to get a nice even coat on there, and of course it's already matte finish, because that's what those craft paints are. They're matte paint. I think they're designed more for going on paper. So for this model, I kind of rescued it. I didn't have to strip off this paint and start over. And I got a finish that kind of gives it a rustic look, which is what the military Jeeps would have looked like. They were painted very quickly and roughly because they needed to be flat surface anyway, and it didn't really matter how pretty they were. It's a weapon of war. It's supposed to go out and kill people and break things, and so it didn't need to look pretty. So I'm putting some serial numbers on there. I've started the serial numbers with RP I have no idea what those serial numbers mean or what they would indicate, so I just put random number there and hope that I won't get a response from somebody, some Second World War veteran or somebody who studies history enough to know what those numbers would mean, and then they'll tell me that those were not African numbers. Here on the back I'm putting something that was commonly on American vehicles because they were fighting alongside the British, and they need to be warned that the guy driving the car in front of them was sitting on the left, not on the right. So very simple decoration for this model, but I think those decals really make it look real. So here's my pivot. So this is a gimbal, so I need it to rotate in 2 directions. So to do that, I'm drilling, and you can see I'm spinning the drill with my fingers. I'm not using a drill to do it because it's a gentle thing. I just need to create a little indentation, and then this thing is going to be held up by a piece of the hollow stainless steel tubing, and I'm going to flare it. I'm going to put it through, and the flare will hold on so that this thing won't come off, but it'll spin. So how do I flare this little piece of 2mm stainless steel tubing? I'll put some support. I've got a hole drilled in a piece of wood, and then I've got this little center, and so I'm gonna hammer this thing. This is kind of a rough setup, I have to admit, and I probably should have taken a little more time in preparing something for it. I didn't think it would take much work, but look at it, it's jumping all over the place. So anyway, after that, it doesn't look like I'm doing much, but in the end I did get a nice little flare at the end. So spread it out enough. There you can see. So when it goes into this part, it was held on with a toothpick for painting. So I put that through, and of course it doesn't go all the way through because the flare holds it, but it allows it to rotate. So there, a nice simple little mechanism, 3D printed, and that goes onto the base that I attached onto the car earlier, you may have seen. So now I'll put some of that green paint. It's not very good stuff. I wouldn't recommend using it for doing these models. I just was promising myself I would give it a try on some model, and it hasn't been the best, although I have to say the paint job doesn't look bad on the Jeep itself. So now I put that steering wheel in there, and I have to push it all the way in. There's these crimped marks so that it can't go too deep into the hole, and it gives you the correct spacing, so I got to push it all the way in. So eventually I get it in there, and then I need to bend that shaft, so I just put this little piece of scrap metal and push on it, and there you go. It's in there, it's not going anywhere. So now I put a coat of flat lacquer paint on it. To be honest, it's a little bit more satiny than I expected, but it's good enough. It looks pretty sharp. And now for this Browning machine gun, it's got wooden handles, so I paint those with a little bit of craft paint, which doesn't go on that well. I put 2 coats, it still doesn't look great, but I'm going to live with it. And now for making the axles. Now normally when I do axles, these are the axle ends, the little mushrooms. Normally I would buff them up and make them shiny, but this is a military vehicle, so I'm not going to. I'm going to actually paint them because I need them to be camouflage, same as the rest of the thing. So the flat back paint goes on there, and here's my mechanism. Now it's going to come together. Here's the machine gun, and there I push push that little pivot in there. This is another piece of the 2mm tubing. And in here I have my painted rivets, or rivet heads. They're actually little nails. They're decorative nails for some kind of craft work or something. I got them from Amazon, and you can look below. I have the link in the text below. And I need to cut those off because it's a very short shaft, so I can't have them pushing against each other and preventing the heads from being on the outside of that little piece of tubing. So I'm using my axle cutter. Basically, it's a pair of pliers where I've ground the jaws right off of them, and it gives me a very powerful, high leverage cutting surface that doesn't have a big set of jaws sticking way out. So I put a little bit of 5-minute epoxy into the end of this tube, and this is how I do my axles, the same way. You'll see in a little while. So these ones have been painted black, so see, it pushed the other one out. That was the air pressure pushed it out. So there, now it's complete, and it pivots, it rotates, and it pivots. So this is panel line paint. It's a very runny paint, and what it does is it settles inside those grooves that are in the model for being the grill, and it leaves black paint on the bottom. I had to put 2 coats of it because they're a little bit wider than a panel line, and so I had to do it twice. But eventually I got it so that it looks like it goes right through. It's a radiator grill. And then I paint the headlights white, and then I put the orange indicator lights on the back. We need brake lights, and there we go. Now I take off that screw on the bottom. It's been protecting the screw hole all this time, but it's also been painted green, and so I'm going to put that one right back in, so it kind of goes with the rest of the model. It's all camouflaged, even that screw on the bottom. So now the tires are not in great condition. They're starting to crack a little bit on one side, so I'm going to wash them, and I'm going to put them on and make sure that the cracked side is going on the inside. These tires are a little bit harder to get, and since I have them all, I'm going to reuse them while they still work. They'll be good enough for a display model anyway. So you can see I'm just using a old toothbrush, a little bit of somewhat soapy water. That's actually the soapy water I used to put the decals on, and now I'm using it to clean the tires. So I'm recycling. So there's my painting rig for these wheels, and each wheel gets a tire. So this works well. They're all camouflaged. And as I go through this, I find that I'm liking the model better and better. I'm not a fan of these I'm not even a fan of the Dinky military models, because I find that their paint jobs are not really very accurate. And when I was a child, I used to make plastic models of all kinds of tanks and things. I don't think I ever made a Jeep, but we always put I did them with my brother. We kind of competed, and I always put accurate color paint and camouflage and whatever we needed to put on them. And I found that Dinky put a paint job on them that really didn't give you the flavor of a military vehicle, so I never really liked the Dinky military vehicles. But I think this one, if I was seeing this as a child, looking like this, I would want it. It looks like a real Jeep. So here I've got my 2mm stainless steel tubing cut to the exact length I need, and I put a little 5-minute epoxy into the hole, and then I put my little mushroom, little decorative nail that's been painted flat black. And then I go to the other side and do the same thing all over again. And I have to do this pretty quick because I've got 5 minutes. This is the stuff from the dollar store, 5-minute epoxy, and it's better than the stuff that's 5 times more expensive at the hardware store, because that one takes overnight before it dries. It's supposed to be 5-minute epoxy too. Some reason the dollar store stuff is way better. So who'd have thunk it? So there you can see the base. That's the base I screwed onto the bottom. You saw earlier. I didn't talk much about it, but that's the base for the machine gun. So the epoxy goes in the hole there. I think that was from the same batch of epoxy, so I was on a roll. And there, I fit it in there, and she's ready to go. Doesn't look exactly like the real machine gun because it would be too fine. It would break too easily, so it's a little bit more heavy duty. But we can pretend they put a heavier barrel on that one for some reason. So just to remind you where we started, this is what we started with. It's a repainted Jeep. It's very close to the color that it originally came in. So let's see what it looks like now. I don't know about you, but I think that that's a drastic improvement. I'm really pleased with it because it looks like the Jeeps from the TV show, The Rat Patrol. So that show was in the 60s. I was too young to really understand it. My brother was watching it, so I watched it. He's 5 years older than me. And when I look at it now, it's kind of one of those naive shows from the 60s. I don't know if it was really made for adults. It was more made for children. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky and Diecast. If you did, please remember to subscribe and also to like and share. If you like it with a little thumbs up, that apparently really helps my scores. So please do that. It doesn't cost anything. So until next time, be seeing you.